Hello, welcome back to the Double Swing. We've got another event preview, and this time, well, we're right in our area of expertise. This is our ballpark. We know this level of CS a little too well, it seems, at this point, but hey, we're going to have a lot of fun. It will be a Fissure Playground 2 preview. Joining us is TeaTime for the second time on the show. Last time was, well, a bit of a riot, I think. It opened up on one of the most dramatic, I guess, twists in any show's history with your opening pick in that Asian RMR not being Mongolz, just out of spite. I loved it. It set the tone, and it was a fantastic episode. So really glad to have you back again. Yeah, can't wait to see what you open up the show with this time. Let's put it that
I'm
way.
ready. See, I already had this prepared just in terms of an opener. Forget the picks, but before that, just it's funny that when I come onto the show, you know, you're obviously French. I've got like my mother, like a lot of my family, just spent a huge amount of time in France and whatnot, right? So yeah, I feel a little bit connected and whatnot. And despite all of this, somehow Michael's the most French person in this call because he's the one who shows up with 2 different partners to every show that I'm on with him. So yeah, there you go.
Wait, what? Excuse me? I don't even know where these accusations are coming from.
Hey man, Michael, I thought it was me and you that I see you on the cameras with KingT. It doesn't get more French than that, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man. Thanks for having me back on.
Yeah, no, just hoping I am. I'm not sure if I want to be the mistress or the original partner, but anyway, enough on that. And let's quickly recap what happened last week. Blast Open London, or as I've called it, Blast OpenDoors London, given the security, was a bit of a disaster for us. I'm not going to lie. I expected to do better when I managed to snag Spirit, Na'Vi, M80 and GamerLegion, and little did I expect M80 to be my best performing team, the only one scoring any points for me. Yuumi had a similar disaster, although his was far more self-inflicted. Really just shot yourself in the foot with some of your picks, and then, well, thankfully for my sakes, you were punished for it. Mao's the only team that scored you any points. Liquid, Legacy and VP, surprisingly enough, not pulling through. Finally, our guest, Thorin, did well. Unfortunately for us, did well. So the viewers keep pulling away, the viewers and guests. His Vitality and Furia picks both landing. Sure, his underdogs missed the mark a little bit, but hey, he'll take those 3 points. We have to go home pretty much empty-handed. I mean, take the 1, but it's not great, is it? It's just not great.
It's done nothing to affect our leaderboard, at least, you know, between the two of us.
The real war.
And you're just pushing the big red button, like, let's get the guy who gets everything wrong in now.
Yeah, so welcome to the show.
Yeah. As I'm saying, delighted to have you back on. But okay, you have chosen TeaTime to go 3rd in the picking order. Yuumi is going to be taking the first pick. And let's find out where he goes with this. Is he going to blow our minds?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, no. I'm just gonna be frank, and you know, I think it kind of spoiled for choice in terms of who you can actually pick here, because I think there's a lot of angles, but I have to just pick the Mongolz. I simply have to pick the Mongolz. They've been the most consistent playoff team. They've been the team that's been developing over the past couple of years. They've been changing roles and play styles, and it finally feels like this works. I feel like this version of the Mongolz works, even if there are periods where Techno sometimes goes missing or Mazinho sometimes goes missing. I feel as though there's a good camaraderie to this team. There always has been, but each tournament it feels like there's a different piece that stretches its legs more than a previous tournament demonstrated for them. So yeah, the Mongolz are a safe pick here, I think, for me. And if it goes wrong, then I'm going to be very sad.
Yeah, just to preface that with all that, yeah, you will be massively disappointed if they struggle here. They've been your baby for a while. TeaTime, we've seen the Mongolz win a legitimately big event. I mean, it's Esports World Cup. It's not as prestigious as they want it to be, but it still is a big deal overall. How much did you take from that event? Did you see it as their crowning achievement, or is it just the start?
What's weird to me is that every time I'm on your show, there is a reason for me to go against the Mongolz, and now Michael's just given it to me again. Obviously, I'm a big fan of this team. I will give all the disclaimers outright. I think this team probably should make like top 4 and be a favorite for the finals. But for me personally, I don't see them winning another tournament. You know, I don't see Techno coming out and giving us another MVP performance. Unfortunately, I still haven't seen the Senzu and 910 show up together. And where Michael's talking about how, hey, every time someone new CPU is like stretching their legs out. The problem is someone else is also curling up inside the bed. It feels like the size of the bed is the issue, not the size of the potential legs, as strange as this analogy is becoming. I just don't think they're going to be able to win this tournament. So that's also one of the reasons why I said I wanted to be the third pick, because I knew that someone would end up taking Mongolz before me, and I'd rather have the winning team. And I'll go into that later on. But for me personally, it's just one of those things where I don't know if I've seen that consistency from 9-10 to say, hey, he can do it for 3 playoff series in a row, right? You also have to remember Fissure has 4 quarterfinalists, so no matter what happens, you are going to be playing 3 playoff series. I think that this is still a team that will at some point hit a wall. And look, I've obviously got the best of wishes for them to be able to break through it, but I do think that'll take some time. And ideally, maybe we start breaking that wall as we head over into the majors. They are like probably the most consistent team right now in the circuit, even in the top 5, in terms of what you expect from them. Unfortunately, consistency doesn't come with a ceiling very often.
Yeah, they have been remarkably performant, I guess. I mean, Cologne maybe not the result they hoped for, but Esports World Cup was for them, the proof that they needed. This team can win events. We have the pieces combined to win events. But I also do have my concerns. And you'll see them win series with 9-10 half asleep. You'll see them win series with Techno just dying. And I have to field, 100 different sort of comments every time he does well. Ask me why I don't like him. It's because, every time I have to watch a series he does that in, I have to believe that that's going to be a limiting factor. Mazzinho's been a player that I think has shown flashes, and when he's on, they are literally unstoppable. But that's just the nature of the positions he plays. If that guy is coming out of Palace and just headshotting people every round, in the same way PR on GamerLegion sometimes does, you're just not going to have a good time on your defense. Mazzinho presents that same sort of threat. So I do think they are a team who are potent and mechanically about as sharp as anyone could ask a team to be, just in terms of raw aim power. It's just a question of when will they continue, when will they develop that sort of consistent playoff play? Because they're still kids. And I think that's the part that everyone likes to overlook. They love to overlook it for every player. As soon as you've been in the scene more than a year, you're no longer a child who basically is still struggling to make their way into a professional environment, competing in front of thousands. People like to forget that. They forgot it with GymFat. I think they often forget it with the Mongolz, demanding consistency, expecting results. I think Esports World Cup was, again, proof of concept. I don't think they win this, but they're always going to be a threat to win everything just because of the pieces involved.
I think it's just, I still have my reservations, and I have my concerns about this team. I always have, and that's often, we have done shows where the Mongolz have existed for a lot of time, and, they're maybe on the bottom end of the favorites category, and we're always very hesitant to pick them because they are a team that there's a lot of hope for, but there's a lot of downsides to as well. So this just was one of the rare opportunities where it actually felt right, to pick them as a favorite. But I think, just to your point about people kind of disregarding the youth of players and that category, is that, we celebrate longevity, but we celebrate longevity because it's actually so rare that players are in the circuit for as long as they are, and at the level that we're kind of celebrating them at. Like when we're talking about Carrigan and celebrating him as an in-game leader, it's because he's been at the top for so many years. Same with Nico, same with, even Crims and players of that ilk. So, even if we are disregarding their youth, there's no guarantees that any of these young players actually have long careers ahead of them. We want to say that they have long careers ahead of them. We'd like to prophesize and forecast that they would be able to still be consistent, but the reality is a lot of players actually don't.
Yeah, that's tough.
I think it's fair to have the assumption of consistency in terms of, semis and finals. So for the Mongolz at this point, right? Like that's something you can ask for. That's something you should expect. They have made the major finals. They have just won EWC. They've also been a threat, like you said, to win tournaments. When you're a threat to win tournaments, you should never be below top 4. So I will say that much at the very least. It's fair for fans to ask that. But yeah, I don't actually think there's a lot of fans saying, oh, you have to go in as the favorites and actually win every tournament or whatnot yet either. Fans are being pretty reasonable about this. At least in that department, if nothing else. For once.
Maybe. There might actually only be like one favorite, genuinely, where the expectation would be that they win this tournament.
Yeah, there will be some people who will react violently to what they've seen from other teams, let's say, in terms of teams like G2, who've just gone and won a tournament. But yeah, they should be the only ones with that real sort of expectation coming into this one, and I do think they're the best number 1 pick. I'm not saying all these things because I don't think they aren't the best pick. If I had number 1 pick, I would have taken the Mongolz. I do think it's the reasonable way to go because everyone else who is, let's say, in the top sort of 6 teams candidates for this event, I think has way more glaring issues than just sometimes it feels a little bit like they're choking. Some of these guys wish the problem was that they choked. Some of them just have poor roster construction. Some of them are just, well, not just the roster construction, but just the individuals are all bad. Like there's real problems on other rosters. The Mongol's big problem is, sometimes the kids get nervous. What a luxury to have as a problem. Onto myself, and my pick is going to be difficult. I did say I have a lot of problems with all of the teams besides the number 1 favorite, and I'm tempted.
Promising start.
I mean, I'll keep it real. I am worried about everyone else. But I'm going to go with the team that I think has the most pedigree, just in terms of the players on the team, and with some of the most violent potential. I'm going to take Falcons. I think Falcons coming into this event, coming into the last event they played, they were massively undervalued. Like, I think everyone saw their initial debut with Kyosuke and was disappointed specifically by Nico and Monacy. My reaction to that, you'll never get that Nico and Monacy again. Like, there is just not going to be multiple events in the year where you get both those guys playing that poorly. They then went to the Esports World Cup, made top 4, beat Vitality in the 3rd place decider, which I think is trivial, really. What matters to me is that they lost to Aurora. That's the game that you win or lose. That's not really... the 3rd place part is irrelevant. I still consider that 3rd, 4th finish. But we saw that in these players, they have all the pieces they need. We still have questions around Tessus and the roles he plays and how that's going to work and what should Kixan really be doing on this team, just in terms of how he uses himself. But Nico as the sort of controlling half-lurk, not necessarily ultra aggro player, has showed again in this last event, especially on maps like Train, that he can really just impose his will on a defense and dictate how the game will be played. Monacy hit some bangers, had some great rifling moments especially. I think that's been the surprising part, is that he found some form on a rifle, but hey, whatever way he finds it is all good. And Kyosuke, the numbers fell off, the sharpness didn't. He is still, as a hard entry, about as scary as it comes. Like, he can do what MabsMD can do. He can do it, honestly, at even a higher level than what MabsMD can. And that's insane, considering the potential upside that you get from a player, even just Mab's caliber. Kyosuke is going to be an insane X factor on a team that, well, isn't desperate for it. They didn't need necessarily more X factor, but hell, they've got it, and that's never a bad thing. So yeah, I think Falcons have, again, we talk about upside winning potential. I think this is the team who are scariest when it comes to past the Mongols. Who do I think in a playoff series I don't want to face at all? For me, it's this Falcons roster. I expect them to go deep, and I'm really, fingers crossed, hoping they can make the upsets they need happen.
I'll let you go first on this one, Michael.
I think my concern is the last tournament they won was with Dexter. And that was like, this is the thing with the Falcons. I don't doubt that they will be good eventually. They will be a tournament and like a giant Slayer team eventually. I actually think a lot of the pressure just comes down to weight of expectations, because they know they are the highest salaried team in the circuit. And there's a semblance of, they have to justify that position to a certain degree. And I think Falcons have always kind of struggled with that. The fact that their last hurrah out with Dexter, when they knew they were making a roster move, it was, leaked or announced prior to the event that was going to happen, that they played actually the best Counter-Strike I'd seen Falcons play in like 2 years, was also a sign that, if they can get past that pressure, regardless of who they have on the roster, the team will perform just better in general. So yeah, with Kyosuke and with, Monacy and Nico, I don't doubt this team will eventually be good. And to be honest, in terms of weighting and value, I would say basically Falcons are very comfortably like a top 3, top 4 pick. Within the favorites category, they should take Aurora's spot basically for where they sit in the VRS and where they sit in the rankings.
I'm going to jump in over here because KingT, I appreciate your way with words, right? But the problem is sometimes it gives away what's actually going on. You just said how, oh, Nico's imposing his will on Train, and you almost got it right. Right? You almost got it right. The problem is not just that he can finally impose his will on Train. The problem is he's about to impose his will on the entire team. Nico is speedrunning his IGL journey. That's inevitably going to happen at the way this is going. This team is crumbling at its seams, and the pressure isn't just on them because they're the highest paid team in the world. That's obviously true. The pressure is also on them because they just got Kiosuke. This is probably the most individually skilled name value team in the world right now. And I'm saying this in a world where Tanier is also joining Spirit, right? You've got Nico, Monesi, Kiosuke. This is not supposed to be a team that should ever suffer to the likes of a Mouse where they lost to it against EWC. Mouse is having like a record low compared to what they were having earlier on in this year. This is not a team I have massive amounts of confidence in at all. They're going to make the playoffs. They're going to probably end up choking out in the playoffs or something like it. I'm genuinely just going further and further down on the Kixon stock for me personally. I don't think this is a badly called team, but when I say I'm going down on it, I just doubt his ability to manage this team. And every time it gets harder for him, not easier, right? Monesi comes in. You've got another piece who you have to be able to make work because you know he works on his own. Kiosuke comes in. Kiosuke has proven his worth just in that first tournament. And now everyone's saying, hey, well, you got to make that piece shine. And you might be saying that, okay, his sharpness is still there. His numbers aren't. You're going to need both. Unfortunately, that's just the case. And I just don't think Falcons is going to be able to play this out under that pressure. I genuinely think that right now the problem is that you are going to have Nico at the end of the day coming out into the IGL. So that's the only time when I see this Falcons team actually start to succeed, or if they get like another crazy IGL shift. I just don't think this team is going to be able to fare out well versus when you compare to like the stability of certain other lineups. When you're talking about, even a team like the Mongolz, I don't think Falcons is going to be besting them. I think they could even lose to a team like Aurora in the group stages, especially, maybe not in the actual playoff environment. I think G2 could definitely smoke them as well in a situation like this. And yeah, I'd probably take them as slight favorites over a few of the names I've mentioned, right? But I'm emphasizing slight favorites, which to me is absurd given the lineup that this team has. This should not be like a 55-45 versus these other teams. This should be a guaranteed top 3 contender, with the other ones being Vitality and Spirit. So yeah, for me, this Falcons team is still worse than the sum of its parts. It still has so much to prove, and the pressure is only going to get greater and greater as time goes on. And we've already seen it doesn't do well under pressure.
And you're blaming Kixon for that.
No, I'm saying Kixon just has more on his plate every time. And if he can't handle that, unfortunately, he probably isn't the guy for this team. If you can't bring all of the talent together that is on your team, you shouldn't be on a team which is built to buy out players for millions of dollars. I'm not saying he's a bad IGL, but there's a different skill set to being like, hey, yeah, we're the team that's spending $10 million on just buyouts, right? Forget anything else, just buyouts.
Let me put it this way. Alexi B, Hooksy, Snacks, Snappy. Maybe Snacks. Out of all of those in-game leaders, I could say is like, maybe doesn't deserve to be in that mix. Fine, I'll hold my hands up and agree to that. But you're telling me all of those in-game leaders couldn't manage Nico Monesi? You're saying all of those in-game leaders couldn't manage a team with superstars?
And that's why Nico's speedrunning his IGL journey, because no one can manage him.
I don't think that benefits them whatsoever. I think part of the reason all those in-game leaders fail is because Nico is maybe too imposing. There actually just needs to be either an in-game leader or a player that can stand up and actually just call their shit. But the thing is, when Alexi tried that, and you used to see this on G2's old Mirage, when Alexi tried that, Nico would troll. Genuinely, Nico would troll CT sides on Mirage when they weren't playing the style that you've always seen Nico play on that map. When he was having to like play for control on a ramp, he would just throw almost all of the time.
Yeah, I see. But the thing is, you're just adding to what I'm saying. I genuinely fully agree with you that hey, this team, there isn't an IGL in the world that can rein this team in. Like genuinely, I think maybe you could make a case for Karrigan, but even there, I don't think so. Not with the current way things are going for him, right? There isn't an IGL that can do this. If it's not going to be Nico, it has to be him out of the team one way or another. And Falcons are not removing Nico without at least giving him a chance to be the IGL. And I genuinely think that chance could work out really well for them. But until that happens, this is going to be a fractured team.
That's just tragic. Like if the world where Falcons win is that Nico in-game leads, times are tough, man. Like we're in a recession.
They've bought 3 cores over the last year and a half. They're causing the Counter-Strike recession. They've probably spent like $15 million on buyouts. I don't think, like, most majors didn't make $15 million in sticker revenue combined across all of them. This is an absurd team, unfortunately.
Well, I'm praying for a very, South Park-esque outcome. The fractured butthole. That is what I'm looking for. And I don't disagree actually with any of this. It's not an episode, it's one of the video games they made.
Oh, okay.
It's one of those things where I actually don't disagree with a lot of what you're saying. I do genuinely believe that Nico's best chance in the coming years to be dominant, to be all-time great, to win majors, probably is as an IGL. I do think there are problems, but I think this is a field where a mopey Nico who ignores his IGL and does what he wants still wins. I think this is a world where Utesses gets baited by Kixan, who's kind of desperately trying to do something, but Kyosuke hits 14 headshots, so who cares? Still wins. Like, this is a team that, despite all its flaws, despite all its weaknesses, I still think can come out on top of this field like this, where every team not named the Mongolz has problems where I'm like, I could see them beating them. I could see them straight up beating them.
I think this is where I'm going to jump in with my pick as well, because I can't not talk about this at this point, right? Guys, now I need you to visualize this, okay? I need you to visualize. We're talking about a team that doesn't have clear leadership in the Falcons, right? Oh my God, we don't know who the real leader is, who's the voice here and there. You need clear leadership, right? You need someone with a vision. But then you also need desperation, right? And Falcons have that desperation. They're going for buyout after buyout, but that's desperation with money, right? That's too much money to burn. I need something a little bit smarter. I need, like, hey, we've got no hope. We've got nowhere we can go. We don't have options. We have to rely on pure skill and KingT videos to pick up a lineup together. You suddenly find yourself with like the 4th, 5th best opera in the world in Molodoi. You've got Fallen at your lead. Kesarado is still one of the most consistent riflers in this tournament. Then you put in, the guy who's brought in as effectively a ChatGPT translator before ChatGPT 6 comes out, and he's somehow also becoming slightly better at clicking heads. Yekindar is over here as well. Furia's taking this tournament, man. They've got the veterancy of IGL. They've got the skill ceiling when it comes to Molodoi. Molodoi might be the best opera at this tournament. Sure, m0NESY is supposed to be better, but we all know m0NESY has one series in the playoffs, every single playoffs, where he isn't on for the past 6 months or something. Basically, this entire 2025. That one series, that's when Furia is going to be coming in and picking him apart. And look, Furia obviously didn't have a great Blast London. They lost to G2. That's Sanpayas having the match of his career. The last time Sanpayas looked so good, it was on Movistar Riders in ESL1 Cologne, okay? That's before it was even called IEM Cologne. That's how far ago I have to go to see the Spaniard put up a performance like that. Furia is going to be back in, learning from their Blast London. You've got everything you need to be able to come through. The Dark Horse, the Dark Panther, they're taking this one home. It's easy. It's guaranteed. I do not see a world where Furia can lose this to anyone except for 3D Max.
So,
yeah, okay.
Here's the conditions for why that's unfortunately desperate hope, but completely unfounded. This is, let's check this off, a big event where there will be playoffs. The last time they won in a big event playoff was against MIBR in May this year. Before then, you have to go back to 2022. This is the problem Furia have had since, 2022, basically. And will have continued to have, even with Molodoi, who's come in and struggled on stage and struggled in big event playoffs. There's been many a team who've had narratives surrounding them and their big event playoff struggles, just playoff struggles, stage struggles. Furia have dodged that mostly by just missing playoffs at almost every event they attend. Historically, they've just been that kind of mid. But even when they have made playoffs, they have lost to practically everyone. They've lost this year to Spirit, fair enough. Aurora, they've lost to Pain, Mongolz, and then G2, sure, Sanpayas life game. That's the difference between 13-5 and 13-10. I refuse to hear anything else. They got crushed by a prime Sanpayas. Let's not pretend they were going to win those maps if he's just average Sanpayas. They got obliterated. So I have zero faith in Furia having magically figured this out, magically come to the realization that we are who we are, and we can now just do it.
You see this? This is my trap card.
You go
it's
for
an
it.
arena event But what if the arena is empty because they haven't sold enough tickets? Can Furia then come back in and not choke under the playoff pressure? Listen, man, I saw the last Fissure event. I'm not that hopeful. It's a big arena. Hey, man, Fallen can turn a library into a library instead of an arena into one. Okay, I believe in it.
That's one hell of a caveat. Like, oh, well, maybe if they don't sell enough tickets, my team wins.
So yeah, we're basically assuming, because the last time they won a big event playoff game was at PGL Astana. You're hoping that they recreate that, essentially.
Yes. Basically, yes. Similar field. You know what? They do actually comment saying that, hey, these are the 3 teams we identify that we can do a lot of homework for. I think Furia is in a good position to, break that curse a little bit, even if it's a fake curse break, because we don't have, obviously, Vitality, Spirit, and Mouse, who you traditionally think of your top 3 teams. I don't know, man. I do think that this is going to be the event for me in my head where like Furia is going to be able to, sort of change their color scheme a little bit and make it work for me. Because look, to be honest, one of the other things is I just don't believe that this score of players is always going to suck on stages, right? I do think that Serato is going to be able to pick things up. Eventually, there's only one tournament where he pops off. There's going to be one tournament where Molodoy does all right and will have like the odd pop-off game. And I think that's really likely to happen in a tournament like this one, rather than something where there's a lot of pressure, where all of the top teams are, where you've probably done more prep for, the massive favorites rather than the dark horses like your G2s of the world and whatnot. And this is a team that, in my opinion, probably relies very heavily on that preparation, right? There's still a language barrier of some regards that you have to get past by just going into the game with a lot more rehearsal, with a lot more gun rounds planned, with a lot more like, hey, this is what they like to do and whatnot too. Obviously, that does miss out on some flexibility that you need in arena matches. I agree with that. But I do still think that Furia right now, after the Mongolz, for me, I would even rate Furia as having a better chance of taking like this tournament than the Falcons does. Because Falcons, they've got this crazy skill ceiling, but I do just think that their inconsistency is so much less likely to be overcome because it's purely mental. For Furia, it does feel like there's actually gameplay-related reasons for them to be able to overcome. There are actually fixes that you can build on iteratively as well when it comes to things like comms and whatnot. There's a lot more to improve on, funnily enough, for Furia, which is why I have slightly more faith in them than like the Falcons, for example.
I think the positive for Furia, and they would have probably been a pick for me as well, because I've been really trying to pump up the stock on Furia for a while, actually. I think the positive for Furia is that even if, their loss to G2 wasn't great. I agree, Sampaius usually looks pretty awful, and they played against a god-level version of him. But I think the positive for most people losing to G2 at Blast London was actually that nobody really knew how G2 were going to play with this lineup. They didn't really understand how the Soul implementation and Sampaius and him coming in would affect the dynamic, how Hunter would call, how Hunter would perform individually. I think there's a lot of things about G2 that were sort of an enigma going into the tournament, and even for teams like Vitality, I think you could understand, you could see that there were certain like reads and timings that they were taking that were just completely wrong. And I think that's something that teams will adapt to as G2 are seen as a more legitimate threat again. But Furia are, probably one of the best tactical teams we have in the sort of top 8 right now. Just in terms of the variety of calls they go for, the punchiness of which they can execute on them, because they have that Yakindar, Serato, Yuri pack, the combat Molodoy. I do think Furia have a lot of upside right now, and I think Blast London is maybe a distraction from how they've been trending upwards.
Trending upwards, but still, too often I'm still stuck on it. If Molodoy so far peaked in his debut series against MIBR against his home crowd. I love the guy. I think he's a mega talent. We might have a problem. We might just have a problem. And one that he's maybe adopted from his team. But hey, TeaTime, you have back-to-back picks as the third pick, so who are you taking now?
Right, so I have to take an underdog now, right? Just to be sure about this one?
Take whoever you want.
I game planned this entire thing, so I'd have the first underdog pick. Fuck. Okay.
You can do the first underdog pick if you want to, but you'd have to.
It's not forced at all.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So it's all right. So okay. In the favorites, I think the second team that it would be stupid not to pick them, right? I'm going to play along with the game a little bit, right? I'm going to try and get some points, mostly out of spite against you two more than anything else. Otherwise, I'm not going to be a regular.
We would want nothing
here.
more, actually.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
The point.
Yeah, so I'm going to go for just G2. This is where I think after that previous performance, it's easy to see G2 coming out and being a little bit. By the way, am I still on?
What?
Yeah.
Oh,
So.
sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
No, all of the Ninja Link just died for me over there, and I couldn't hear you guys for a few seconds. Okay. All right, cool. Sorry. So yeah, no, I'd go for G2 over here, right? Because I actually think this G2 is not going to be elite. I don't think there's the caliber of player needed. I don't think Hunter's a good enough IGL. The amount of mistakes that were being made against them by teams was, I think, a clear sign of a combination of like, hey, a lack of preparation, but also them having a really good tournament overall. G2 is probably going to be like the 5th best team. Maybe 5th or 6th. I think that's way better than they've been in a long time, especially considering that they don't have this, GOAT candidate player now. So you actually have the structure of a team that is ready with maybe one roster move to take the jump up and then be elite. But it's not there yet. That being said, what I do like about this is I actually think the Heavy God Mattis or Heavy God Malbs combination is always going to be a pretty reliable 1-2 punch, right? Like one of Malbs or Mattis are going to show up, and then you do have an aggressive rifler, and you do have a very stable individual role player as well, who's kind of like a star player in his roles and is lurking, and on the CT side sometimes when he's anchoring as well. So you've got a really good baseline already. Then comes Sunpius, who I don't think he's that reliable, to be frank, in a playoff situation, but he's still good for a map here or there, especially if it's like, sometimes if it's like a Mirage coming up or a train coming up, I do feel like he can actually add a lot to that conversation when you're looking across the field of Oppers across everywhere else. I mean, outside of Monacy, even, especially when I factor in Molodoy's inconsistency, I don't really think there's anyone who should just straight up be dominating Sunpius in an OP duel either, right? So when you consider that you don't have a Shiro, you don't have a whatchamacallit, Zaibu as well, this should be a good field for G2 to be able to do well, personally for me. And then finally, man, I'm still really concerned, to be honest, about Hunter, but what I'm not concerned about is Saw. Saw is such a bloody good coach, dude. He just keeps on doing it again and again. He preps his players so well, and now he's got like the best kind of roster you could want, right? Which is a lot of really young players who completely trust him, and Opper who also completely trusts him, because Sunbias's only success ever has been with Saw. And when 4 players of the team trust you, Hunter doesn't really have a choice, even if he didn't want to. So I just think this is the best place for him to shine, and G2 for me right now is Saw's team. It's not Hunter's team. Hunter is just a cog in the machine that Saw is trying to build. And I'm glad to see that.
Yeah, that's honestly the assessment I kind of came away from Blast Open London with. It wasn't so much, because a lot of people were very quick to leap on me when I said G2 wouldn't outcall everyone. Like, that's not how I see this team working in the long run. Sure, Hunter had some good mid-rounds on Inferno. That's about it, though. Realistically, that's the one map you seem to figure out how to call immediately out of the gate. And even then, it required a lot of, yo, Mattis, go bang 3 heads just on a gut instinct push-up short. Like, it still required that level of individual, instinctive play that might be based on some Saw prep, but is also based a lot on what players are seeing in front of them and having that autonomy to go and make plays. So I do think there is some limitation to Hunter as a caller, but with the right prep, yes, a coach can really have, like, he can have his glove and just close the net, as it were, like just control them, allow them to, understand what spaces they should and shouldn't take, what fights they shouldn't be taking, what they should prioritize, and the team will perform. That's how they won Dust 2. Like, they just had this incredible sort of understanding of what was important on the map on the defensive end. They constantly maintained control of it, and then through that domination of the info war, basically, they were able to out-rotate and then out-frag Vitality. So no, this is a magnificently talented team. I actually want to push back on the idea that they don't have the caliber of player to compete. I'm completely against that. Like, I've been on the Malbs and Mattis train both separately as they've come up through the scene for years, and I think they're both elite-level riflers, not just good, elite.
Okay, but can I ask you to clarify that? When you say compete, do you mean at this tournament or in general, right? Because I'm saying I don't think they're an elite team in general, right? When you include Vitality and Spirit and whatnot into the conversation, I don't think this is a top 4 team in the world right now, and I don't think this roster can be.
I don't think this roster currently is one of the 3 or 4 most talented or well-assembled teams across the board. Like, if we talk about beyond that, if we have to go against a Vitality consistently, I still prefer ZywOo to not having ZywOo. That's kind of, they don't have a superstar of that ilk. They don't have Donk, they don't have ZywOo. Hell, when Monoseen on his day, they don't have him. But the sum of its parts, the rifle core they've assembled, all these different mega talented players who aren't quite that level, but who are the next tier down, I think it's more than enough to compete. And in the long run, if they get an AWP upgrade or some Pius shows us a lot of more form going forward, hell, if he just plays like he did at Blast Open London, they'll be not that great. Like he was like a 110 kind of guy, like pretty good, had one great series. If he's even that consistently, they will continue to be a threat. But I think in the long run, you get a Grix in here. That's all I'm going to say. It's over. Like, that team is all of a sudden just absolutely lethal. IGL could be not necessarily anyone, but it doesn't have to be a Karrigan, an Alexi B. It can be a Hunter with just some sort of vibe check on the mid round, and a great coach will do the rest of the work. This will be a fantastic roster. For now, it is just very dangerous and would have definitely been my second pick. I still think Falcons are more likely to win this event. But again, they're a team who have more than enough.
Simple to G2.
Also, yes.
Yeah, Simple exists. You know, maybe the more rogue one is Dexter, but...
Oh, get off.
Yeah, fair enough.
I can't.
Yeah, that's why I said it's a bit more rogue.
One fucking event, and everyone's still licking his feet. Like, god damn.
No, I'm just saying, where some Pius is right now, I'd take Dexter, is all I'm saying. I don't disagree. I think this team is definitely... It can win, and I think, you know, I share the sentiment. You know, this definitely feels like a Soul-led team as opposed to a Hunter-led one, which is fine. You know, I will happily look at GamerLegion and think the same thing with Ash, and you know, I'll look at Na'Vi essentially, and I'll put more onus on Blade actually than Alexi more often than not. I think there are certain coaches that just have that, you know, branding to them where every team that they coach plays a certain way and achieves a certain level because of that. So Soul is definitely earning extra stripes with this, how quickly it seems to have bedded itself in with G2. So I would have also probably selected this team if I had the chance.
Yeah, that's...
We'll get fucking screwed. Huh?
That is the point of the order. That is how it works. But yeah, we're back to me on the picks. And look, I'm not going to lie. I feel like if I don't pick the team I'm about to pick, I'm going to get stuck with a favorite that I really don't want. So I kind of have to follow the trend and pick my second favorite and leave Yuumi with the... Well, it's not quite Sophie's
Pretty
choice,
nice.
but it's close. So yeah, I am going to go and grab the Turkish, hopefully not criminals of Aurora. Anyone who knows about that whole arrest warrant situation, shout out. With fingers crossed, our boys didn't catch a case. But yeah, I'm taking Aurora for, honestly, almost entirely mechanical reasons. I still think they have limitations in their calling and their game planning, but I just can't say no. When Xantares comes back from whatever the hell he was doing and looks as good as he did, I have to start believing again. You know, Wicardia, Jota seem to take turns proving that they are actually worthy of the team, especially, well, Wicardia does it a lot more often than Jota. Jota has very, like, rare flashes, but at least he has some. So I do think this team is still the same threat they've been for the last, I don't know, year, roughly, where it's, I think they'll make a top 4 run. If everything clicks on the day, they might even make the final. Probably not, though. They can be usually happy with that sort of finish, given who they are as a team. I said at the start of the year that the Blast Bounty Season 1 grand final they made would be their best result of the year. They finished second at Esports World Cup as well, so maybe I was slightly off. But so far, so good. I expect a similar sort of level of output from Xantares, from Wicardia. Woxic will have a round or two that's really fun. But in the end, they'll face a really well-prepped, well-drilled, equally talented team in a semi, go home, but still have made me a point. So I'll take the Aurora gamble, basically.
Yeah, I've been so down on this team for a little bit. And, you know, part of that actually was, you know, part of your intro and part of the joke, I guess, about the Turkish scene. is actually a major concern I have genuinely
it has
about
to be, doesn't it?
about the team, and I think it actually like coincided very aptly with their decline in form. When there were rumblings and there were rumors about what was happening on the legality side in Turkey, there was genuine pushback as far as form was concerned, and I'd like to think that external factors don't influence players, but they do. I think we'd be remiss to say that they didn't. So I do have concerns about Aurora, and I think it is affecting their gameplay. I think having to fight the external battles is just as hard as having to fight the ones on the server. And for them, it's only getting harder and harder. As other teams are getting better, Aurora have, in my eyes, kind of stagnated. They've not improved. They're kind of still floating, maybe even deteriorating past their previous level at the start of the season. And even there, they were a little touch and go. So I'm not so convinced. I think I just see too many rounds break down just because it seems like communication is off or players are being impatient. And this Aurora team doesn't seem like it's fixed that in like the 8 to 9 months where that first issue arose.
I think one of the things that I don't like about what everyone keeps talking about Aurora is everyone also says that, the declines because of the Valve map pool removals. And that's true. Right, it does kind of suck that Vertigo and Anubis were sort of their best maps, and that's true. But when you look at the maps that have been added in, Train is like Woxic's best map historically, I think, of all time. Bar maybe Dust 2. Overpass has also been a very good map for him. For me, it's always been a question of, hey, where are we going to get Woxic activated? Because you're always going to have Xantire's +1 in the rifling department be there, right? So if you've got a 3-player like fragging core, this team can bang. So I think Overpass and Train is enough for me to say, hey, sure, okay, you were probably the best team in the world on Anubis and probably were at some point the best team in the world on Vertigo, but what you've gotten isn't bad. The problem is that when I then go back towards, the sort of the picks that they've always been defaulting to is it's I think they're picking Dust 2, right? Mm-hmm. And that's inherently a slightly more map with a bit more variety. But then beyond that, it doesn't feel like you're getting that same performance or activation from them either. And it does feel like another thing that has sort of come back into conversation for right or for wrong. I'll be honest, I haven't watched the demo, so I'm not entirely sure where I fall on this, which is that you now need a good IGL. Is Matcher a good IGL, right? Because CT sides have become buffed a lot more, so you actually do need a lot more of a T-side performance in terms of calling and not just an individual one-man show, which is what Xantire's was able to provide them on a few of those maps before. Train and Overpass are very heavy calling maps, even if they're really good for the individuals. So for me, Aurora now more than ever, of course, there's, the Turkish criminal aspect of it, I suppose. But the jury's still out on that. But I was holding that one in. and I actually think that Matcher is going to be the bigger talking point, and that talking point hasn't really been fully addressed because of all of this, hullabaloo surrounding the team. So yeah, I come into this with doubts about Aurora because, from all of the favorites we've had picked so far, you've got obviously Mongolz, G2, Furia, Falcons. I think Aurora has the worst calling and the worst IGL from any of them, and they don't have a coach to back it up either. So that's where I feel like this dip that we've had is probably still going downhill.
That's why I'd push back a little bit, and the idea that the map pool, you said it sucks, and I agree, it does suck for them that they lose Vertigo and Anubis, and I think that's partly has adverse effects on Matcher, because if I think about Matcher-led teams, I don't particularly remember them being great on Train. I don't remember them being particularly great on Overpass, and those might be good Woxic maps, but I don't characterize them as good Xantares maps. I don't characterize them as good Matcher maps. And Wakadia and Jota, they're a little bit more free-flowing. I'm sure they're okay. I think there is credence to the idea that Matcher maybe isn't a good caller in the current state of the map pool and the current meta. I think that definitely could be true, but I also don't know that because of all the other issues that they can properly address that. Like, I think they had always concerns about how much travel they were doing at the start of the season. I remember that narrative very clearly and just thinking, what do you've been to like 3 events back to back to back, and I understand that sucks, but that's the job that you want and that's the job you signed up for. but if they are trying to put in the practice and fix those problems, I don't know that necessarily getting the quality, because we just haven't seen that improvement. So yeah, they're a bit too stagnant. They're a bit static, but I can't deny where they were at EWC and where they hold in the power rankings. They are probably justified, I suppose, as a pick.
Yeah, I mean, we don't agree with necessarily the HLTV seeding at third, basically.
Yeah.
But it's hard to deny. Like, if they are stagnating and struggling when the big three are at events, and they're still making top 8s and top 4s and occasionally a grand final, oh, boo-hoo, yeah, I'll stagnate all day long at that sort of rate of success. So, yeah, happy to pick Aurora here. Slightly weaker field should help them as well, as it does everyone else, but still, for them, it's going to be a big deal. We are back down now to Yumi with your picks. Who'd you like to look off?
I'm not going to pick a favorite because I don't need to. So I am going immediately, and I have 2 picks, so I get to snap up my underdogs immediately. I'm going with Astralis. I like Astralis. I have been, and I've been a big Stair maxer or Stair holder for quite some time, and yeah, Stairmaster. That one I toyed with, but it sounds. I mean, it's an exercise machine, so I'm not sure if I'm really about that one.
They're climbing.
And to be fair, liking Astralis is an exercise. You know, it does
in
feel
futility,
like
yeah.
Not this time, because they have ditched Stown and they've brought in Magus. They are doubling down on Stair as a star player, and they are moving away from Stown as someone that could be. You know, I think we saw good we honestly saw decent flashes from him between him and Yabi for a little bit of time since Hooks' re-implementation. But to think that they started giving Stair those roles and he was just immediately thriving, they were just sort of, I suppose they looked at it and just thought, why do we have you? Why are you on this roster actually? We need some extra stability. And Stown actually just wasn't that type of player. He couldn't get his multi-kills in isolated spots. He needed resources to succeed, and you can bring in a Magisk that, listen, I have issues with Magisk, and I've had issues with him on the Falcons too, but he is not a resource-intensive player, and so I think it actually will benefit this team a lot in the long term, especially in that CT-sided meta where Magisk actually has like pop-off games, typically because of how good he can be on CT. Sometimes.
First of all,
I mean, holy crap! How many things?
First of all, I'm sorry I'm jumping in before you came, but first of all, I mean, I will address. They've said Stown is temporarily going away, right? Like, they haven't actually said that this is like a permanent replacement or something like it, which I hate immediately, because what that does is now we're back in the Astralis 6-man lineup era where you don't actually get to blame anyone for anything. I don't know if Stair is even going to be given the full like star positions in the same way. I don't know if Magisk is going to be brought back to take some of those Stown roles, because they're like, hey, he's going to be right back from that, you know, from getting those secrets he went off to, just like Device was in NIP, right, guys? Right? That's the situation we've got going on over here. I'm not sure about how I feel about that. Secondly, Michael, I've been waiting to be on a podcast with you for a very long time, which is because
you've been something a guest before.
No. There's something that you always say to me in our private conversations, which I'm about to address, and where we have a third party to rule this one out as well. If Astralis wanted to replace Stown, they should have gotten Blame F. They should not be getting Magisk, who has no future, who has barely a past if you're looking over the last year or so, who's shown clear examples of struggling. And I'm not saying struggling when Falcons was like a title contender. I'm saying struggling when Falcons was like a 6th, 7th best team in the world, 8th best at most, and everyone's saying, hey, this guy gets like 1/2 where he's good, and that's where the narrative, hey, he can be good on CT side, comes in from. In comparison, Blame F, who is very resource heavy, who is very comms heavy, who does need to make his own calls and whatnot as well, is just farming away. And sure, some of that is against worst opposition. I haven't seen Magisk farm worst opposition either. And when it comes to putting Stair in star player roles, this is what happens in Astralis, right? Like, historically speaking, you get an anchor who's doing well, you put the anchor in star player roles, he starts doing worse, you get him out of the team, or you put him back on anchor and then you get another star player and repeat. we know there are players with that star player mentality. Stair is clearly someone who can do a lot, who is very good at exceeding the second, third, and fourth roles in the team, right? He's going to be like the best player you can have in those roles. Why go for that upgrade when you could just try and spend some money, which, to be fair, they might not have. I don't know what the blame of buyout would be like, and bring someone in who actually is an individual player, who actually does take those resources. And sure, it might be a poison chalice, sure, but you know what this isn't going to do? This isn't going to push Astralis to being a permanent number 9 or number 8 team. Magisk isn't going to help them do that. Stair as a star player isn't going to help them do that.
The reason they're not picking up Blame F is because he is not a real star player.
And Stair is more than Blame F.
I've seen too many teams from Blame F where he's got crazy numbers. I've been dubbing it the Blame F black hole. He is not a true star player. You don't see the impact, the repercussions of all these kills that Blame F gets continuously from team to team. It hasn't mattered who he's had on the team. It hasn't mattered whether he's in-game leading. It hasn't mattered whether he's had the resources. He is not a true star player. He's a win more star player. I agree he can be good on teams, but he needs to be basically the third star on a team where he can play totally to his own pace.
But is
I disagree
Stair
with
going to be your star player?
Yeah, that is who
more
they
than
are.
Blame F.
That is who they are playing. If you put Blame in Stair's positions, Blame would not take the flashes. He would not take the entry. He would not take the fight.
I agree. But the question is, do I take Stair in star player positions and Magisk in Stair's positions, or do I take Stair in his own positions and Blame F in Stowns? That's my question. And for me, I will always pick Stair plus Blame rather than Stair plus Magisk. That's my contention with this.
I got ready my gavel and everything. I'm not sure what I'm ruling on exactly. Am I just supposed to agree with someone or the other?
I understand the vision. I understand the potential. I'm so down on Blame F stock in terms of how he implements into a team, because I think he absorbs all the life force from his team. He's like the energy vampire of teams. I don't know what it is, but he seems like a lovely guy. I think that's the worst part. He seems like a lovely guy that works hard and works his own frags, but everything just absorbs everyone else's ability somehow.
What I really love about Astralis signing Meg is because they finally addressed their firepower woes. I mean, I'm glad they've brought someone in who can actually raise this team's ceiling to the point where they can contend with the other top teams in the world. Finally, a rifler of that ilk, with consistency as well. He can just deliver those results, no matter the side, no matter the map, no matter the opposition. They figured it all out. I mean, come on, don't take the piss. This is one of the stupidest moves, and that is purely done out of financial difficulty I've ever seen. There is no Counter-Strike reason they actually wanted Magisk here. I refuse. I actually refuse. This was done because he was easy, cheap, and good PR. That's about it. There is... Is there maybe someone who doesn't watch the games at Astralis who's I remember Magisk, I think we can bring him back? Maybe there is some Danish guy. I'm trying to do Danish. I don't know. It's one of the hardest to get right. You have to toe a line between a lisp and it just doesn't really work.
Yeah.
But more importantly, this roster move just to me screams we needed to do something, because Stown genuinely wanted to step away from the game, and they just panicked and was like, he's free. He's got nothing else to do. I guess we'll have to play with him for now. So I'm violently opposed to this move, and I do not think Astralis will play very well at all with him. If I'm wrong and Stair gets pushed into star positions, carries the team, and all they needed was a great role player all along, give Hooksy IGL of the Year, give Hooksy 1,000, a harem of 1,000 women. I don't know what you want to give him as a prize, but give him everything he wants, because he'll have earned it if he makes this move work.
If I'm being honest, the move, if there was going to be a good one and a pragmatic one that fits roles and the types of responsibilities, if Astralis were serious, they would try and buy Shush. That's it. If they were being serious, they would try and buy Shush.
Yeah, they tried by Shush, or if they wanted a player to just come in and play star roles, they could have taken a risk on one of the ecstatic riflers. Again, I've always been anti-recycling in that sense. Stop recycling shit players. Ecstatic noticeably also did the same thing, recycling A-Core back into my fucking site. please don't. But Astralis could have tried something new. They could have taken a risk on an up-and-coming player. Instead, they've gone back to the old, trash pile and pulled someone out. Again, I think purely for financial reasons.
Okay. Yeah, I don't necessarily see it that way. I'll hold my judgments. But, I mean, the positive is that Astralis aren't going bankrupt, so that's good. They got bought out.
Yeah, they got bought out. Soon they can get a good player.
Yeah, they've got new ownership, so... Because I remember that being a conversation for a while with Astralis. It's like, wait, are players even going to sign up to this team when they have heard that there's like financial problems in the background? They took a bit of a risk.
Isn't it also just so ugly that like Astralis last year, Device is like, I'm out, baby. And now Stone is like, I'm out, baby. At some point, like, you need players who are just going to play with you for the entire year. Like, this might sound like a foreign concept, but yeah, man. I mean, sure, I'm sure whatever's going on in these players' lives, it sucks, but how is it always Astralis that comes out in positions like this? Yeah.
No idea. Anyway, I don't think we need to go down that road any further. Speculate as to what's creating Astralis' mental woes. Yumi, you got another pick. You said you're going double underdogs. Is this one going to be a little more thrilling?
I'm sticking with Asian
right
teams.
There. Oh, okay.
I'm sticking with Asian teams. I'm not picking VP. They have made Perfecto in-game leader, and they've picked. Let me see. Turo. I ain't big on it. I'm picking Tyloo. So they won the last Fissure Playground, which is, a big positive for them. They're a team that I think are kind of turning a corner, and now they are a team with a little bit of also external controversies, perhaps, that are, let's just say I haven't seen all the evidence. But there are external controversies that seem to be arising with certain players. Even in spite of that, I think the team tactically looked good, or much better than any iteration that I've seen from Tyloo in genuinely the past 5 years. Their variety is good. They've got a good active piece on CT sides in attacker. Jam Young is sliding into star roles, and I think he's not necessarily the best aggressive rifler in the world. He had a fantastic Fissure event. That much is true, but I think he definitely is still uncomfortable in that, and you're never going to get that level of Jam Young consistently. But just the idea that he's being thrust into those responsibilities and kind of giving lurking duties to other members on the team is actually, I think, a nice to see, because he's always had the capability to be as good as what we saw at the last Fissure. He's just he's too. I think he's too smart technically for his own good. Like, he wants to play it too safe, too positionally, when he could just go out and take heads. So I'm siding with Tyloo. I feel like right now is a good time to look at Asian Counter-Strike as real contenders in events like this, and I think Tyloo can punch up.
Yeah, that's the sort of pick I expect you to go with first off, I'm going to be honest. Like, I was expecting a Tyloo pick out of you. When you said you're going fully into your underdogs, that's at least one I thought was guaranteed. So, sure. TeaTime, Tyloo, what's the ceiling on this team? Because we saw them Fissure Playground 1. That was insane. And sure, a lot of that felt like Jam Young just going the hell off, and then since then it's kind of cooled down. But look, can he heat back up again?
So I went into third pick because I thought, I'm going to pick my favorite, then my underdogs mid Tyloo, and oh my god, like I've just solved the game, right? So that obviously says I'm a big believer in Tyloo. That being said, I haven't been able to get them, and like every jilted ex-lover, I will now proceed to flame them and call them garbage because of that very reason,
Please,
all right? As one does. Are you kidding me, dude? Like, Mercury is not calling this team. We have to remember, by the way, the reason why Jam Young played so well in the last Fissure Playground is for one reason and one reason at all, and that's because Joking was on this team while they were playing the first playground for like the vast majority of the tournament. Joking, who's an incredibly serviceable role player, who I always felt like probably should have been their fifth before they'd added attacker when they were sort of considering Starry and whatnot as well. I feel like that extra calling voice meant that Jam Young had a lot of burden taken off his shoulders. Mercury as well was able to have a few more maps than he normally would and whatnot as well. I think G coming in the end was just like a feel-good story, and I was getting kind of annoyed when people were making that the story, like, oh my god, G's coming, he's doing so well, when really for me, that entire tournament was Jam Young and Joking, right? Now you're going to have Mercury fully calling. G's very coin flippy when it comes to international matches. He's all right, he's decent, and the one advantage that they will have, I will say this, is that they're going up against GamerLegion to start with, and Kursi somehow turned out to be the only, like, prospect people have been hyping up, who's turned out to be kind of garbage, to be frank.
Sorry, who hyped him up?
Hey man,
I think there were a lot. I think there were so many people.
I can block them now. Tell me those names.
I think there were so many people that were like, wait, who?
I saw a lot of Twitter who was hyping. I was like, okay, maybe I just don't know him, right? But yeah. Anyway, my point still is,
I would say that's not hyping up. That's more like, okay, respect the Astralis.
I'm seeing like lots of tweets. No. I'm not saying like Twitter from people who are relevant. I'm just saying I'm seeing random tweets all the time being like, yo, they need to pick up Kursey. Kursey's popping off and whatnot. I haven't seen him at all, but I'm like, hey, you know what? Community sentiment, maybe he's all right. He clearly hasn't been all right? So, Tyloo have a good start over there. But after that, I mean, who is this Tyloo team going to be outcalling and beating? Their map pool is also still going to be very questionable for me. Overpass is something they've been trying to flex into. I don't think their overpass is complete at all. I think their T side on overpass looks really wonky. Their CT side clearly looks like it's something under construction, and they're not going to have had time to construct it by the time they come to Serbia. I think there's too much for them to work on. Even when I've seen them play out on train a couple of times, it's not been the most impressive. It's largely been like these late round clutches that they're relying on versus teams that are just objectively worse than them in a lot of these situations. Tyloo are walking into a field where they are no longer individually mechanically the best players, and the only player who can maybe hold a candle up to the field is Jam Young for me. And sure, he might be able to go on a heater in a couple of games. I don't think that's going to be consistent. I don't think you're going to see the mosaic that you need to see to get this team to succeed. And worst of all, I think Mercury's calling will really be called into question. And am I, again, I will remind everyone, am I predominantly saying this because I don't get to pick them? Yes, I am. But there is definitely a kernel of truth in everything there, because there's genuine concerns about their map pool for me. Like, I don't think they're fantastic on overpass. I don't think they're very good on train so far. Their nuke is definitely questionable for me. And Inferno being a map that they opt into very often, it's just not a good map to pick, right? It's kind of like got that Dust 2 effect that everyone does play it. Everyone is pretty good on it. And it's also one of those maps where it's inherently easy to look up the strats that your enemy team is playing. So you have to be a lot more adaptable in your mid rounds and whatnot as well on Inferno. So I think map pool is not going to be favoring them. I think individually you're not going to see that same performance now that the overall level of opposition is higher. And yeah, I just have to say, I don't think this Tyloo team is going to make playoffs even.
Damn. Missed playoffs after being, reigning champs. They went in, Fissure Playground 1. And look, they took down 3D Max in the quarterfinal, Astralis in the grand final. Those are probably the biggest sort of successes of that run. I mean, Saw is a team that, whilst always problematic and strangely successful, was desperately underpowered at this event and has since then gone on to prove that Muturis can only make so many miracles happen when the PC was provided. So I think Tyloo, I'm still really impressed with that run. I still think it's okay to have belief off the back of it. It's just, you're correct when you say the field is way harder now. Like, this isn't just an okay tournament with a couple teams who are nice, or they could be something. No, this is a team with legitimate top 6 teams, several of them, and even then, the rest of this is quite heavily stacked with just the rest of the top 20, basically. Like, this is as tough as a field can get. So no, I do think they have that to rally up against, as well as maybe their calling limitations. That's entirely fair. So no, Tyloo is, for me, a team that's going to be boom or bust at this event. Entirely boom or bust. They could, I think, boom and make a playoff appearance, and maybe even an upset if they get the right matchup. But I'm also leaning on the bust side of things.
The biggest caveat I'll give to Tyloo is that they may be the worst team at this event from fighting from behind. They actually might be the worst team in big scoreline deficits of actually making the game threatening and making it close. Or, they're a team that sometimes maybe squander leads, but if they don't have leads early, they will probably not make the lead late. So that's the biggest indictment I have of them as a team, is that, yeah, it kind of falls in line with the idea that they can be sort of boom or bust. Is that, if they don't get off to raring starts into maps, they're a team that can, I think, more easily be blown out than I think many other teams at this event.
It's sort of it was my initial gut instinct when I saw the M80 versus Vitality opening map. I was like, it's a lot easier to call from the front foot. It's a lot easier to call when you're 5-0 up. It's a lot easier to make that sort of T side work. And I do think Sin is a pretty decent IGL. It's just also, he had to get his calls perfect in that kind of upset win. I'm not sure, firstly, that they have that level of caller. And I'm also just, if I'm depending on that to win a map, I'm going to struggle. So yeah, that really is an indictment. To say that they may squander leads and need to front run. This sounds. I mean, what's the other option? Like there is.
I would say like when they squander leads, I'm not saying like that they lose games from those leads. Typically, I'm just saying that they're the type of team that will make mistakes that will give the other team more chances to maybe win a game. But I think Tyloo have gotten much better at actually just sealing those games, even if the scoreline ends up like a 13-11, but they had like a 6 to 7 round lead to close out the game. They are much better at actually putting it over the finish line than they used to be, and I just think that's the biggest weakness I can really look at on this team as a point to why they could actually, in theory, bomb out of the event to a certain extent.
Yeah. Okay. Well, for me, Jamyoung showed at least in that Fissure run, like sort of top 5 or 6, like sort of rifler in the world level. If he brings that out again, yeah, shit. I mean, entry riflers. There's a reason they're always overvalued by every one number metric. It's not because they're overvalued. It's just that when they're on, they win the game. So, fingers crossed. If you want them to succeed, I think you're going to need a massive Jamyoung.
Maybe Jamyoung just loves Belgrade.
But yeah, maybe he does just love Belgrade. Maybe he is a big fan. Maybe he was secretly no, I'm not going to go down that road either.
Please don't.
I just love every now and then there's a door in my brain that opens. I'm like, oh, maybe not. Oh, maybe not.
That's not today.
Not today. Not today. All right, we're back to me, and I have all the underdogs in the world to pick from because Yumi took none of the ones I wanted. Well, I was actually kind of up for Tyloo, but I knew I wouldn't get it. Not in this field of pickers. Let's put it that way.
Why you thought?
But I'm going to take the team I took last event, the team who let me down last event. But I always believe in delusionally at this point. Like I've just bought in now. I've got the stock and I'm not selling. I'm taking GamerLegion again. And look, predictably, reliably, Kersey was bad. Kersey was bad.
They are consistent. I'll
They
give
are
you
very
that.
consistent. And I thought that Fnatic loss, the fact that nobody got a public lashing for that one, kind of alarming. Someone should have been on their knees getting flogged for that loss. It was abysmal. But again, they're going to come in well prepped. They had all the time off. They didn't go to the LAN portion. So they could have prepped every opponent at this event by now. Like they have actually had time to regroup, reconsider, and maybe teach Kersey how to shoot. That's a bit of a long shot, but look, the prep is what mattered for this team. It's what caused us to pick them perennially as the underdog upset team. And now that they are skilled enough to just beat teams, it's why I personally keep going to them in the underdog well to just repeat their successes. They have maps they're strong on, they have maps they're great on, they have maps that I don't necessarily think they're always favored on, but they can have the sort of rifle impact to still go and win. It's been a while since their last convincing victory, to be honest. And that's probably the only point of concern I'd have for them. You know, they've beaten VP Complexity, who hasn't? They've beaten Big, who hasn't? They've won a lot of these sorts of games where I'm happy they took care of business, but not since Dallas have they had a real marquee victory. So I'm still waiting for that level for them to come back. But thankfully, this is a field where they don't need marquee victories to necessarily make playoffs. They just need victories. Like they just need to take care of business against 3D Max Pain. That sort of caliber of a team in a 2-2. That's what I'm hoping for out of GamerLegion. And honestly, they always have the potential with their prep, with the way they come into events sometimes, to just go on a 3-0 type of run. So I'm still holding on to my faith when it comes to GamerLegion, still believing. And yeah, eventually one day, they might get a different AWPer in. But until then, I'll keep relying on what works. Ash, ZTR, PR, Res. More than most teams could wish for.
And Townsend.
I mean, Townsend, yeah, pops off, but like he's not been my repeat, reliable source of win conditions over the last 9 months. Like that's not been my guy.
Do you see how he just picked GamerLegion, Mike, and then he proceeded to shit on them for like 3 minutes?
I do it all the time.
That is the show. I do
it's
that.
The show.
It's like, guys, I think GamerLegion's gonna really help out my portfolio. Here's why they fucking suck.
Yeah, there's a reason they're in the underdogs. They've not been misplaced by accident. They've had a pretty weak run, but I still believe in the win conditions that made them so fun, so good in the past.
They have one of the lowest fragging IGLs in tier 2. And like I like CTR, but you kind of need someone to be able to keep on getting some, he needs a map or two here or there. And again, I've followed their VODs. I do not watch GamerLegion demos ever since they become bad again. I'm really just not that interested in them beyond just, keeping an eye out and whatnot. I don't think this is a very good team. I don't think this is Ash's best scouting jobs, nor is it, to be frank, his best field to be coaching in either, right? I've obviously have said a lot of good things about coaches and how much they can influence a team. I think the Swiss format is one of the worst formats to be a coach in because you've got such a bad idea of who you're going up against. You can only theoretically prepare, and there's always some like screwed up upset that happens. It is inevitable because in a triple elimination, I mean, that's what Swiss is, right? In a triple elimination, someone always fucks around, right? And something always goes wrong. So yeah, I don't think their prep is going to be helping them over here. I think you are completely wrong about this. And the fact that they've got two low fragging players, one of whom is in probably the most important or the second most important role of the game. GamerLegion is not making it to playoffs in this tournament, even if you don't have like the top three teams present. It's just not happening, unfortunately.
Just to drop in just on Kersey, because Kersey is bad. And he's measurably bad by rating, basically. The new rating that decides terrible decisions are terrible decisions. But you can't say he's low fragging. Objectively untrue. The man does carry the frag number that is tolerable. The problem is just his overall impact on the game and, well, therefore, rating is the problem. He does shoot and kill people. Your word for it. He does shoot and kill people.
I'll take your word for it. Let me see him in the playoffs.
Yeah. I will say, he does shoot and kill people, but worse than Slend used to.
Not in a KPR sense, no he doesn't. He kills way more people than Slend does. Slend was a 0.6 by the skin of his teeth KPR man. Like, he was dreadful.
But when I used to watch Slend on holds on bomb sites, he'd get his kills. When I see Kersey on holds on bomb sites, he does not. He might get his kills on his exits, but I just don't see them. I don't see Kersey as a fragging AWPer at all. Not in the sense that matters. Like he's not getting kills that influence or swing the round, and I think that's probably where rating.
Yeah, that's why he gets such a hit, but he does kill people. He does.
Yeah, he does kill people. Okay.
Hey, look, we're clinging.
Yeah,
we're clinging to the edge of the cliff right now. I needed something.
This might be the worst time to invest in GamerLegion in their history.
I'm just holding the stock. I've been bought in for a long time.
Yeah. It just they're in a bad place. A
lottery ticket every week.
Yeah, I just got in early. Yep. It's gone to its highs and now it's gone to its lows, but still didn't sell. So
well, we haven't quite reached the lows that we've reached in the past with this roster.
They have had some bad. The organization has had some bad rosters before.
Shout out to Keels and Acor. I don't know who was talking shit about them. Huh?
Hey, they were the part of the rise. To be fair,
it's true.
Yeah,
Shui was put out on loan to a qualifier, and that was.
They were a very important part of the rise. I mean, you removed them, and look at how good you got.
Yeah. Well, some players only rise you so far. Yeah, GamerLegion are just in a weird spot, and I think Ash has been very public about his disappointments with the team and how it's been developing, and I think today is actually his birthday. He was like, it's been a rough couple of months or whatever, but still having a great year. So happy birthday, Ash, I suppose. Maybe a day late or whenever we release this video.
Oh, it's coming out as soon as possible because the event starts tomorrow. I ain't got time to fuck around.
The team is in a rough spot, and they're clear in acknowledging that. Even if Reds is going to look good, even if PR is going to look good, they've got so many deficits in other areas, whether that's Towson and his inconsistencies or that's CTR and whether that's Kersey. I do think, unfortunately, there needs to be the way that this team is currently looking. I'd actually look at like a 2-man roster move for GamerLegion in the next 3 months. I don't know necessarily who, but it feels like the fit that worked initially is no longer fitting, and part of that's to do with Kersey, and how they've changed things around him. So maybe you only need one player, but if I'm looking at like free agent AWPers or good prospect AWPers that exist in the circuit, they're a little bit more aggressive or flashy and a little bit more of a, whether the heroic Grix conversation is actually about his personality may require some more refinangling is all I'll say.
Dexter?
Yeah, also another
he
player.
would be better. I mean, I can't deny he'd be. I mean, I'm a big
Dexter on GamerLegion would be great.
I'm a big hater of everyone pushing him for every team because shut the hell up, he's not better than Wonderful, but he's probably better than Kersey. He's probably better than Kersey. I'll concede that point. That's not hard to do either.
I can't believe there are people that are like, yeah, I'd take Dexter for Wonderful. I actually can't believe.
There's people who've suggested Dexter for every team that isn't Vitality, Spirit sometimes, and maybe Falcons. But I've seen people suggest him back as well. Like, people have gone off the rails with their sort of Dexter rose-tinted glasses.
They just love that smile and how aggressively he'll pound you.
That's true.
I just can't. We need to move on. TeaTime, you got back-to-back picks. Save us, please.
I don't think I can, I'll be honest, but hey. Okay. Look, so you talked about how Michael was left with like this really bad set of choices in the upper side of things, right? Obviously, he was left with FaZe, 3D Max, and Pain, and to a lot of people, that's me like, oh my god, this is awful. What am I gonna do here? That's how I feel now. That's how I feel now.
What do you mean?
Right?
Virtus Pro's right there.
Because I've got a Virtus Pro with Tyloo, and that's how I will always pronounce it. If there's a number and an O together in my head, it just becomes very Scooby-Doo-esque in the middle. And it's also giving me very Roro vibes as well. I'm not going for VP no matter what happens. Then you put me in a place where I could invest in Liquid. And I'm not about that life. Like, I'm just not. Liquid's one of those teams where I feel like even if you put Donk in there, you're going to end up seeing the worst of Donk somehow, because it's not a question of the players. It is just a question of what the hell is going on. I mean, you want to talk about skill-sucking vampires? I would like to see the vampires in this room because they're not on the team. The skill is not being sucked into this team, unfortunately. So now, realistically, I'm going to start things off with, as a personal love of mine, right? And because Michael's stolen, one of them away, but maybe even two, I'll go with LynnVision. And here's the problem with Tyloo. They will probably fall off when the field gets better. Here's what I like about LynnVision. They step up when the field gets better. They play with so little regard for their surroundings in situations like this. You see Zacher going for stupid bullshit that works out very often with the op. And it's not stupid like, oh my god, this decision is stupid. It's stupid that it works a lot of the time. But he's very good at recognizing that we are in a pressured situation. I have to make a play. Zacher is the kind of player who does that internationally. I really like that about him. You've then got like pretty good clutching ability in Amelia as well. And when you put those two kinds of players together, and you have like, in my opinion, what is a pretty consistent fragging IGL in Westmelon, you've actually got the pieces to really get like a good upset run going for yourself. Now, firepower-wise, this is objectively one of the worst teams in this entire tournament. But the good thing I like about them is that they always step up when it comes to like these weird matchups where it's going to be them versus like a Pain who hasn't done preparation. It's going to be them versus like a 3D Max who hasn't done preparation for them. When they're like in that 0-1 camp, or even if they're in the 1-0 camp, if there's a good upset, Lynn is good at taking advantage of being in a position to force out a scenario that should never happen. Will they beat Falcons? No, they will not. Will they beat Mongolz? No, they will not. Will they beat Aurora? Maybe, to be honest. I could see that happening. Will they beat Furia? I could also see that happening. There are enough teams here where I could see them coming out on top. And within the bottom 8 teams, the only team that I say they definitely can't beat is Tyloo, just because domestically, I think they've got a bit of a mental block over there. Everyone else, I think LynnVision can actually take a match off of pretty easily. This is also a team where I like what Gum's been doing for them consistently. Again, I go back to coaching, because coaching is a lot more important, I think, for teams in Asia, because that's the only way you're going to get to have a better map pool, right? So I actually think this team comes in with an interesting first pick of Dust2. Great upset territory to start things off with. Sure, it's never going to be a consistent map, but it's a really good place to have a pop-off on Zacher, which is sort of what I need. Then they've been sort of experimental with, a lot of overpass being played. They like their Ancients as well. This is a conducive map pool to getting BO3 upsets in a Swiss stage. So that's why I'm going with LynnVision to start things off, because genuinely, that Westmelon, Zacher, and Amelia combination, it just works sometimes, and I'm kind of banking on that.
Notice how he doesn't bring up Starry.
I've never brought up Starry.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Like,
and I'm just saying, for anybody that doesn't watch Asian Counter-Strike or doesn't watch LynnVision, you'll see them go to international tournaments, and you'll hear other commentators, you'll hear analysts go, Starry. He's cool, he's flashy, he has high fragging games. Sometimes he has games where he completely vanishes other times. And I think he's actually probably the player that is most susceptible to that pressure. I actually agree with you. I think Amelia sometimes steps up, Zacher, Westmelon. That's the consistent core that when they're against tough opposition, it actually kind of doesn't matter who's on the other side. Starry, I actually think, does see the lights, and they shine a little too bright. Because he is good. He can be devastatingly good, but he can also be devastatingly shit. And it seems like when that happens, it spirals, and his decision making it gets worse. Like if he misses like his first 5 or 6 opening duels that he takes, his decision making just goes out the window. It's like he forgets how to play, and he's trying to. It almost looks like he's doing absolutely everything to be bad, which is not how I think he envisions it. But he's just clearly trying to change how he plays to fix what's going wrong. I don't know. This team is strange. So I do agree they've got potential. I think it's a good time for Asian Counter-Strike, and I think Lynn are definitely riding that as well. But yeah, they've got inconsistencies, they've got problems, and in much the same way that I think honestly the Mongolz had for quite some time. Whether that was Senzu and his inconsistencies, or whether that's 9-10 and pop off game, but then sometimes disappearing. Mizinho, I think Lynn are in a very similar position with maybe not as strong pieces, and less of an argument to be made that they can make that rise, but they find themselves at that same sort of crossroads.
LynnVision have always been tough for me to judge, really, because they're a team I see very rarely, right? Occasionally they'll come and like play an event, and I'll see them play, and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember Starry. He's the guy with the sick highlight, whose demos I watched, and they were kind of cracked, but like it was never.
You win every other caster, apparently.
Yeah, well, if I don't cast Asia. I'm not up for those times. I have enough on my plate trying to watch every single person under the age of 20 in EU play CS, apparently. So it can be quite tough to keep up with the Asian prospects too. So I'm always a bit confused. I mean, it was fun watching Amelia, obviously I think it was the major, wasn't it? It was just a major. There wasn't much else to be super excited about, but that major was a lot of fun. And it's always interesting to see Zacher and Westmelon consistently just like delivering. For the longest time, I had no idea as well that Westmelon was the IGL whilst doing all of this stuff. When I found that out, I was like, oh, okay. They really need to surround them with less bums then, because I thought one of these other bums was the IGL. But then, they kind of have built out the roster a little better now, like with Starry, with Amelia. Call Me Sue, I'm not too sold on, but I don't know.
He has done a lot to like change the way they play, though. I think there were times where Lynn were like super static all the time. I think Sue has brought sort of intangibles into Lynn in terms of like options. I think Lynn is basically Colby Sue has brought options to LynnVision in a way that very few other players actually could have. I think as far as roster moves, it's kind of undervalued the intangible aspect of it.
Like I'll put it this way, KingT, just so the viewers can understand a little bit more easily at home. Let's say, you're like 22 or whatever. You're like, I want to have a transformation in my appearances. I want to start hitting the gym. You start getting jacked. You start all of this. But your sense of style is still kind of dog shit, right? You're going around in like tight, skinny jeans and a ripped t-shirt and thinking, yeah, this looks great. Call Me Sue is like that girlfriend or wife who comes in and is like, actually, let me give you like a visual overhaul. Let me tell you how to actually dress. This is what you do in this situation. This is what I've learned and what you do in that situation. Yeah, and then you come out, you're suddenly wearing new clothes, you're looking fresh and whatnot. And that's why you value, because she makes you a better person. Even if people might say, you know what, you're too good for it, but that's just not true. That's what Call Me Sue is like right now. He makes LynnVision a better person.
That actually makes sense because he's got a lot of experience with photo shoots.
There you go.
The fact that I know exactly what you're talking about. The number of threads I've seen specifically on that topic.
Yeah, well.
It explains so much about the nickname. So no, yeah, LynnVision for me is yes, there's some interest there. There's some intrigue always with my own view on them. I'm like, oh, could be cool, could be interesting. Speaking of catching cases, though, we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, more interesting developments in the Chinese scene, let's say, on that front. So I don't know, I'm cautiously interested, I guess, to watch them play. Like, we'll see how that opening matchup plays out. If they get utterly battered by G2, it wouldn't be too much of a shock. But take that one map, and all of a sudden, I can see that 0-1 comeback coming through. So, yeah. Interesting little pick. Who else have you taken, or going to take?
Right. So now comes in my choices. Okay? Mm-hmm. On one end, because I've already said I'm not picking Liquid or VP, right? I'm just not doing that. Yep. On one end, I've got Legacy, who is the only team in this entire year, only international team, to have lost a FlyQuest with their full 5-man lineup. All right?
True.
Like, I don't know how to give this team a worse rating right now than saying you lost a FlyQuest, my guys, in a full BO3 on LAN, right? So there's that coming. But then on the other side, there's Heroic. And man, I want to believe so hard, but I struggle to, right? Because like on one end, I love LNC, man. I really think this guy's got such a fun story that he got kicked from NIP because frankly, like people just thought he was literally too dumb to be a top level pro player. He's now an IGL in like a legitimately top 20 team. He did it last year with Sango as well. Right now, I think he's done a pretty good job with Heroic. But he's also always had like this year he had Saw standing behind him. That's a good man to have standing behind you. Now you've got Tobiz. Like again, Tobiz. I don't even know what to expect from him right over here. Right? You've got Alcarin on your side, who I just genuinely think jury's still out. I don't think he's shown us this riveting performances. X-Cloud's always an unstable guy and whatever. Right? Then you Nilo, the talent who never was, but now maybe is, but now maybe might not be, right? Like, we don't really know what's going on over there. Why we still never gotten clarity on why he wasn't playing and whatnot. So I'm going to pull a card out of Michael's book. And instead of picking another underdog, I'm going to pick another favorite. And I'm going to say, can I do that? By the way, just
no,
you cannot. You cannot do that. You
obviously
cannot
if I could just pick 4 favorites, I would.
Heroic.
Okay, there we go.
And I have reasoning for this.
Of course. The bullshit continues.
You seem like you're really going to believe in what you're saying next. So I'm ripped.
They beat Spirit on LAN in a BO3.
When?
Are you telling me? Wait, like
Esports World Cup.
Oh
EWC.
yeah. I'm just making sure you remember when.
Yeah. You made me doubt myself for a second there. They beat Spirit on LAN. Not just that, they 13-3'd Spirit on Nuke, right? You know what that tells me? That tells me this is a team that, gives us something extra. Youngsters still managing to step up in a couple of ways. And I think that's always been one of the things about this sort of former Sangha core going into now Heroic that's been interesting is youngsters' development as well as a player. And now when you add in like X-Cloud, who I think has always been a legitimate like rifling prospect, maybe not prospect, but like tier 2 talent who's always good for like a couple of series in there as well. Nilo, obviously, like I said, the star player who never was, now coming back in. There's some Tinkerbell shit going on over here. You just gotta believe, man. You just have to believe that a Swedish trio is going to come through and in a real tier 1 event, bring it all together. And Alcarin, man, he's coming from Spirit Academy. It's the academy of all academies. I mean, is there any other team that's managed to produce as much success into tier 1.5 compared to like a Spirit has? No, I don't think so. So you have to believe in it. And Tobiz, look at this guy. I mean, what a coaching resume he has. Let me open his team. He was on Mouse NXT. He was on academy. Mouse fucking NXT. Okay? So you're just putting in the best of the best in academies. You're putting in the best of like these, potential IGLs plus prospective riflers who are just improving against all odds. They beat Spirit, goddammit. Of course this team's going to be my underdog pick, which is what I was going for.
Right. Let's just take that piece by piece. Let's go. Right. So they beat Spirit. I remember I was in a tap house, actually with my dad, watching the game on my phone whilst we talked shit about, French football, I think, primarily. And I was stunned. But I do have to remind you, Tanir was kind of a big deal in that. Youngster massively overperformed in that series the way you don't usually expect or rely upon. And Alcarin played, well, as I expected Alcarin to play when he took that step. Yeah. Because I watched him, I profiled him. The one disadvantage of leaving prospects up to a member's vote is they sometimes make terrible decisions. It's why back in the day I stopped doing a full public vote for that stuff, because people skipped Torji for 3 straight polls, and I was like, sorry, screw you guys. I'm just going to do a Torji episode. I should have done something similar here, because Alcarin, I watched the demos and I was thoroughly unimpressed. As a player who didn't take a great number of interesting picks and fights, and at the same time played at his best in close-range chaotic scenarios. So it was a player who was playing a style that wasn't built for his actual shooting style, and it was very inconsistent just overall. Like, even when he was doing that close-range combat stuff, it was very hit and miss. So I was not sold on Alcarin, and unfortunately, Heroic so far have seen roughly what I expected to see. For this Heroic team to work, the return of xFloud has to be successful, which there's no guarantee. But he was pretty strong before he got benched, almost seemingly out of nowhere. Like he was coming back into form, playing himself back into form. So there's not an impossibility that he does that. It's just he has to do it. Nilo has to step up and fill the Tanir void, which as much as I think Nilo was one of the most talented Swedes out there, like he was my Swedish prospect, basically, last year. And when he gets signed to Heroic, I'm super excited. But the fact that he steps away from the game, comes back, the roles are awkward, he's now still got to do that same step up in competition, that same transition that always is tough to predict. All of a sudden, I'm not as convinced. I'm not sure. I'm especially not sure that he's going to do it in this shorter time period. Just take his star rolls back and just be like, all right, boys, I'm unleashed. I find that hard to believe. So as much as I love Linus, I love the Heroic like sort of org and the things they've managed to do, despite being ravaged time and time again. They've maintained a pretty successful sort of team. I would have picked Legacy, and I'm about to. Like, that's all I'm going to say.
They lost a flight quest!
I don't care. I don't see the Heroic ceiling. That's the problem. I know the floor's decent. They're going to play solid CS.
I don't see the Legacy floor.
That's fine. That's fine, because floors don't win events when you're talking tier 2 teams. Like, floors really don't. And, yeah, Linus is great caller. I think he's one of the great finds of the last sort of 2 years. I think Youngster, decently like in competition with that, just because he was playing nobody Norwegian CS as a Swede because no one would take a chance on him, and he's come into this being a pretty damn good role player, even tier 1.5 sort of 1 level. Like, he's been very solid. I just don't think they have the ceiling to go win the games they'll need to win to make the playoffs here.
Yeah, I mean, with Nilo not being with the expectation that Nilo is not going to be a superstar player from the get-go, this team has no firepower, basically. Youngstar needs help. Alcarin needs to learn to be better, and
needs 2 more years in the academies. He's 17. Leave him there. Put him back.
Essentially, yes. I think for me, I get frustrated looking at some of these Ulpers that have come up, and you know, I was this way about Icy. I was this way about I'm this way about Alcarin, and God, there's another Kazakh Ulper I'm missing.
Moon?
No.
Molodoy?
Anyway, no, not Molodoy. Molodoy is a success story.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
But when I just see these Ulpers that are just they're just okay, and okay in the way that's like they've got an upside, but they're not good. And I think I am frustrated because it's like they had Grix, they saw him, they played with him for like 2 weeks, and we're just like, yeah, you know what, we're gonna go with Alcarin, and I just feel like that's just the wrong move. I don't care how I guess insubmissive he was, or if he didn't listen to calls or he didn't listen to reason. He is the type of player that, you know, with the way that he plays, you play around what he's doing, and you at least try to accommodate that in some sense. I respect Linus as an in-game leader as well, but I do question the management of how this team has kind of rounded itself out, because I think if they had Grix, I actually would see the light at the end of the tunnel. With the way that the team is currently, I don't. Like, I think there's a big gate in the way. There's maybe light at the end of it, but I can't get through.
Yeah, so you're thinking of Khan. I remember I checked the list of Kazakh players by AWP kills per round, and I saw it was like, that's the one. I do remember Khan. You having that same complaint when we talked about Nemiga, so no. Yeah, that is true. No, I can see... Look, if Nilo is everything he was promised to be, if he is sort of that chosen one, as we hoped he would be, as Swedish CS fans, I mean, I'm not saying I am one particularly, but that's especially the group of people who are invested in the guy. If he is everything he was cracked up to be, everything he looked like on Metasport, fantastic. This team does have something to go off of, that they have a basis upon which they can win matches. But currently they just have a lot of players who can not lose them, and I think that's going to be their shortcoming at this event.
All right.
Right, so my pick will not be a surprise because I said I was going to do it. I also want nothing to do with Virtus.pro and Liquid, and I'm going to use a little bit of my time to just shit on them, I think, just before I talk about my team.
Please.
Like, that's going to be a lot of fun.
That's what I'm here for.
So Liquid, technically, it's one of those cases where last year, or a long time ago, I remember I had a pick where, there's the heroic lineup with Nerds, with all that, and I was like, they'd been on a rough patch, and I literally said, this roster just can't be this bad. And so I insisted on picking them again, and they made a playoff appearance. I was like, oh, thank the heavens. I was right. I've been saying this to myself whilst not picking them about Liquid for feels like about 6 months, and yet they keep being bad. They just keep on being bad. It's like, how does this roster keep sucking? It just does. It just does. Ultimate seems to have been the ultimate fluke signing. Like, as in, he was signed, was good, and since then has just been the most average AWP you could ask for. Nerds apparently has forgotten how to play Counter-Strike. Like, the tricks, the gimmicks, the things that used to work for him just aren't landing. He can't out-aim people consistently enough to make up for it, so he's just been poor. Twists is stuck in hell, to be fair to him. I do think he's still a good rifler, probably still deserving of being on a top 5 to 6 team, but he's here, he's stuck, and he's not getting any better anytime soon, apparently. Shuhei apparently can't fix a ship that's crashing and burning. That's apparently not his skill set.
Who would have thunk it?
Yeah, the young IGL kid who had a run with his academy side and then basically promoted the entire academy, was promoted into the academy as adults, essentially. And it worked when he took over from Dexter. That was all great. Put him in this much of a shit show, just couldn't do it. So I feel bad for some of the pieces on this team. I mostly just am confused as to how everyone seems to have forgotten how to be tier 1 pros. I haven't even touched on the Sloth Man, but he's the worst offender when it comes to just all of a sudden can't shoot, can't outposition anyone, can't do anything right, even against some of the worst opposition the scene has to offer. So this has been a strange, depressing sort of downfall for Liquid.
I have nothing to base this off of other than the vibe of when I watch these guys play. But I get this feeling that because they have seen continuous decline, because I'm with you. I think I also got dragged into this. They actually cannot be this shit kind of argument.
And yet, yeah.
Yeah, and yet. I think they have that internal dialogue almost themselves, because when games are going wrong, and I've seen this before, and I've brought it up before as well. Their post plants look like people are taking risks when they shouldn't have. They're reading the tempo of the retake improperly. They're not managing their resources. They're just like, the communication breaks down. And I think because they're in a weird state, and a lot of these players can be good and can be star players. Nerds, Twists, Naf, Ultimate, even in small glimpses, has shown initiative. I think when things get tough, it's not communicated who is going to be that person. Like there's almost no hierarchy of initiative or who is the captain of the ship when the ship is sinking. Instead, it's like everybody doing too much or doing too little. There's no in between. There's never one moment where I see Twist is taking a fight. He's using this flash. They've set it up because they know he's going to take this fight. Instead, it's like this guy's taking a fight. He's done it by himself. There's someone behind him trying to trade. Does it by himself. There's no setup effectively. Like there's almost like no foresight for things going wrong, and I think that's just a systematic problem of them being in a bad place. And I'm not necessarily basing this off of a lot. I'm basing it off of my own read on what I'm seeing in the server, but it just seems like everything is very disjointed at Liquid, and I don't think it's because the players are bad. I actually don't think the players. If I'm justifying it from an angle of my teammates won't do anything, I have to do a thing, I can see the justification. I can see why they take some of the risks they do. But then I just see it happen from everybody at the same time or simultaneously. It's like, why are we not talking to each other about who's going to be doing this thing in this moment? And then the responsibility can be that. Instead, it's like, I made a mistake. The whole round is fucked. And it hurts because I think it's happened far too many times. And I yeah, I guess I'm with you. I want this team to be good because I think it should be good. Or good or
that's
better,
what
I guess.
I think that's what some of the people on this org feel like as well, because of the decisions that they keep on fucking making. It's so stupid. The tournaments that they choose to reject and the tournaments that they're choosing to attend, it makes no sense to me that you will not be playing PGLs when you're not making playoffs to anything. Right? Like Liquid doesn't make playoffs anymore, except for like when they go through like a Blast online stage into like a Blast, sometimes like I think they made it to Bounty.
They made the Bounty
something like
playoffs. That's
yeah,
the last I can find.
that's
basically.
it, right? So, like, why aren't you playing the PGL events, which are supposed to be the freebies? Why aren't you saying, okay, you know what? And okay, this one's probably a little bit controversial, but why aren't you saying, okay, you know what? Fuck the player break. We're going to play that first Fissure playground because we genuinely just need some wins at this stage, right? Like, right now, this team is going to explode. It has already exploded. We need to at least pull this team together to a place where we can be a legitimate, like, top 14 team, right? This is never going to be a top 10 team. The fact that it's not even a top 15 team, in my opinion, that's what is just disastrously bad for Liquid.
If I have to play devil's advocate, I think part of the reason Liquid don't budget extra days for all these other events, and I agree with you, they should probably still attend PGL events and things. I think they probably budget their days and their Schengen days, which is something that they have to be very careful of. I think they budgeted that around the ESL Blast calendar. And then we have, the emergence of someone like PGL, like StarLadder, like Fissure. We have all these other tournaments that are coming in, which is not how things have been ran in the past few years, where Liquid are maybe boot camping more than they probably should instead of prioritizing on attending events. And I'm not saying boot camping isn't important. I just think there's an angle here where because they have a facility in the Netherlands, I think.
Yes, they do.
They boot camp fairly often in Europe, I'd imagine, ahead of some of these events that were allotted in the calendar in previous years. That's just what I'll say.
Fair enough. The problem is, even if you're budgeting around all of this, that's fine for season 1. For season 2, you figured out you're in a hole. You do need to play more of these events. Fissure, the first Fissure playground, that wasn't Shenzhen. That was Serbia still, right? Like, that's in the player break. Again, I get it, man. Players want to have a break and everything. You know what's a great break? When you bomb out of the major, you get an extra week off. Wow, good job, guys. You got an extra week break. Maybe, take 1 week less. Sure, that's less planning. That's less plan if you want to go on a holiday with your family, this and that. You are also getting paid absurd amounts of money, and I will always be sympathetic to the players, don't get me wrong, but I do think that when there are clear things that you could do to try and get some band-aids on and you opt out of those, I'm not about that, unfortunately. So Liquid keeps on digging this hole deeper and deeper, and for whatever logistical reasons that might be because, PGL is now, Romania is now technically a Shenzhen zone. I think until last year it wasn't. So, all of these extra things do come into play. And you're right, Michael. But also, there's a lot of ESL and Blast events and now, the CAC, for example. A lot of these events are happening outside of the Shenzhen zone as well. It's not like the entire ESL calendar and the Blast calendar is all within Shenzhen either. Even the online stages, if you want, you can just go play this in Serbia instead. You don't have to play the online stage in Netherlands. And that's a little bit more cost that comes on, sure. But you know what? It also costs a shitload of money to run a Counter-Strike team where you've got 5 players who are, at least four players who I would be surprised if they're being paid underneath 25K a month and they're doing nothing. Yeah. So that's just where I come down on it. So Liquid makes no sense to me.
I just like to say I outline that mainly as if that is the reason, then that makes sense. But there are, I'm sure, other reasons that are probably affecting the decision making. I'm not trying to make up for trying to solve make solutions for Liquid that maybe aren't even real solutions actually, or create excuses for them, I guess.
And to conclude as to why I end up on the legacy front rather than Virtus.pro or Liquid, well, obviously Virtus.pro played terribly for a long time, occasionally had just random results where it worked, but the playstyle was always the same, and that was the problem. If they could magically hit enough shots, it sometimes worked itself out, but generally just poor. And I don't think swapping IGL leadership over to Perfecto and bringing in a very raw, sloppy, not even that insanely cracked academy player magically is going to change anything. So I think they might come into this event, play some loosey-goosey, kind of fun CS, maybe?
Vibe CS, yeah.
Just like, hey, let's vibe, Fame, you can hit some shots, Flit, you're going to be good, let's go do some things. But I don't think they're going to be very good, and that's why I picked Legacy. A team with, as I like to call it, a ceiling. Dumao and Lato have been obviously like the talk of the town as far as talents in Brazil for a long time. So much so that other talents have appeared and in some cases literally surpassed them in terms of hype and expectation. But still, they are both mechanical monsters. They're both able to do a lot of different things incredibly well. I mean, people who can cast their mind back far enough remember them kind of just being like, whatever, I'll AWP, he'll AWP. Sometimes we'll both AWP. Sometimes we'll both be entries. Sometimes we'll clutch. Like, it was kind of all over the shop as to who did what role exactly between those two. But they were both so, honestly, individually magnificent, it didn't matter. This current Legacy sort of iteration does have its problems. As you've mentioned, TeaTime, where's the flaw? Well, losing to FlyQuest isn't great, is it? It's not great for when you're trying to prove that we have a stable competitive level. And sure, it took Regali turning into Exodia for it to happen, but it still happened, right? That game did happen. And yeah, Regali is capable of that, but it's, for me, I'm looking to just bet on the things that have been better for them. Like, you know, the wins they've had against teams like LynnVision, who will be at this event. You know, the fact they have beaten Fnatic not too long ago. They've been pretty dominant against local competition, which is slowly becoming more relevant as the Brazilian scene sorts itself out. I'm still optimistic that they will have enough of a platform as far as just playing OKCS with this Lux version of the team, and Lato and Dumal's efforts will not be entirely in vain. Like, I do think they're going to show up. I do think they'll be able to frag, and I think they'll be able to do more than the other two options I was presented with.
These guys, they're just a steamrolly type team. Like, when these guys hit shots, they do genuinely just run over bomb sites on T sides. And a lot of that is the chopping and changing of who's going for entries and what pace they play at. They typically play to a faster tempo.
They do.
But I think what's cool about Legacy is that they're actually very good at like playing high tempo and then weirdly pausing before a hit. So, like, say for example, they fast fight mid on Mirage, they get into connector, and then they wait for like 5 seconds, and then they burst. You know, they actually sometimes toy with the timing a little bit to catch a rotate swinging off short, or, you know, being trying to get ahead of the play or reinforce a bomb site properly. So I think Legacy are cool, they're fun. Yeah, their chances aren't high, but yeah, I mean, just for the vibes, I see more of the upside. I don't necessarily disagree. I had them last pick in the last episode, and that was out of necessity. But yeah, VP and Liquid aren't in a great place. To be honest, I probably would have taken the risk on VP, but I understand what my problems are with VP.
You know shit, you would have taken them. Of course you would have taken them. You have that, you know, we've always talked about it. They're your abusive ex.
I have a problem. I'm aware. Yeah.
What I do like about Legacy, I think for me, is I really like Lux. I think Lux was always a very underrated player, even when he was on Pain. I think he's transitioned really well into this, you know, Agile experience. And beyond that, I actually have always kind of vibed with Nasim's game as well. So I actually think what Legacy comes in with is two pretty good, like, supportive elements in that regards. Nasim is a bit more hit or miss sometimes. I think he does struggle more when it comes to translating it through to opposition he's not fully prepared for. But I always did feel like, hey, this is a good role player. I hope he ends up on a Brazilian team which can actually make use of that. There was another guy who I never remember. He was in Pain before Snow came in, Michael. Maybe you would. I think it was with a K.
Oh, God. Yes, I know who you're talking about.
He came through from their academy prospect. He was really good too. Like, so Nasim and this other guy who Michael's probably going to be able to find easily. Those are the two players who I've always really enjoyed as role players. So yeah, I agree with you. Yes, Legacy has the firepower. They have the role players. They have a good IGL as well, right? And all of this sounds really awesome. Like, this should be a great team to be able to sort of bring in and play off of. Unfortunately, I just don't think they're going to do it 3 matches in a row.
I think the player you're thinking of is Nizen. Is it Nizen?
Yes,
he went from Pain Academy to Pain and then to Case, I remember.
Yes, that's the one. That would be the one. Because Nasim and Nizen are the ones I always remember having similar names and being pretty good in similar ways.
Yeah, well, better than I could expect with the final pick of the show. Last time I had the last pick, well, I took M80, and that was, well, the unexpected underdog run that we all loved and enjoyed, I'm sure. Yumi, close out the show. You have the final pick, and it's going to be a favorite. Which one do you want? Pain, 3D Max, or FaZe?
This is really tough because, you know what, I'm gonna trust the process. I'm picking FaZe. I'm picking FaZe. I believe in Frozen, and that might actually all be. That actually might be it. That might be.
To say,
that might
you
be
better
it.
not start telling me anything else.
Just
That
end the
actually might
episode
be it.
there. Like, I believe in Frozen and Hearthstone.
and that's about it.
Yeah, analysis over. Right. Anyway.
Yeah, there may be something there. I'm just saying, like, Brokey hasn't been terrible. He's not been great, but yeah, online. But he's, I'd like to think he could still hit that. Rain is okay sometimes. And to be honest, Jacob, listen, he didn't have a great debut.
No.
But from what he was doing, it was just losing fights. I didn't see, like...
He wasn't doing just full moron swings
caveat?
all the time. Like, he wasn't just brain dead. Like, I think that's what you're trying to say. He was just missing, which is...
I didn't see him make bad choices a lot of the time, but he didn't hit shots where he's supposed to. And I imagine that will just improve. Listen, it's a risk. It's a weird...
Isn't that harder to improve?
Well, so long as you're making the right choices a lot of the time, eventually, your comfort in knowing that you're actually making the right choice actually does improve. Especially as like an inexperienced player. If I see bad decision making and bad aim, then I just know, like, I'm sorry, you're fucked. But at least for Jacob, I think he can look back and just be like, okay, I made decent plays. I just need to shoot people properly. I think he was nervous. Genuinely, I believe he was nervous. And I think that translated very much into the game.
Right. TeaTime, your read on FaZe. Do you believe that this is a chance of working?
No. So I'm of the camp where if you have a good mind for the game, but you're losing every fight, you don't have a place in tier 1. I think the opposite can still be true, right? Like, if you've got a bad mind for the game, you don't really fully... Like think back to Lukowski, for example, right? I wouldn't say he has a bad mind of the game, but I do think Lukowski made, like, a lot of peaks that it didn't make sense to me initially. And when he started actually taking those duels, you'd think half the time, yeah, he should probably lose this, but he just managed to get the kill somehow. That's the kind of player who I think can be honed into, like, a sharp sword from this strangely deadly just metal ore lying around. I genuinely just think Jacob's a dagger. He just doesn't have the length. He just doesn't have what it takes to be playing on tier 1 right now. And maybe he can grow into it a little bit more, but you're not seeing like a swing of about 0.2 or something coming in. And that's what it really feels like FaZe needs if they want to have the additional firepower required to go ahead and win a couple of series. FaZe hasn't been a top 10 team this entire second season outside of when they beat Aurora with Zentire standing in. On land, just to clarify. Online, I think they beat Na'Vi once, but again...
They tested Vitality very close online as well.
Yeah, again, online they've had a few shots, but that's where Brokey conversation kind of comes in a little bit more as well. The conversation of, hey, maybe Jacob feels more comfortable over there as well. I just don't think this FaZe has it anymore, unfortunately, and I just want to see roster moves. I don't think we're going to be getting much out of them at this tournament either, despite the weaker field.
Listen, I'll put it this way: if FaZe don't make it to the finals of an event, actually no, fuck finals, because they've randomly made finals at least once a year, even regardless of how bad they've been. But if they don't win an event this year, let Frozen leave, man. Just let that guy go be a good player on another team.
That's what they've been doing that for every player, right? Like, oh, just let Twist leave for free. Oh, just let Robs leave for free. And suddenly when you need money to be able to get a player, you have to get fucking
Jacob. Yeah.
FaZe is great at letting people go. FaZe really believes in that.
Yeah, they are very generous in that sense. Like, they will let you have their best players. They're world beaters, just almost for nothing. And I'm sure Na'Vi will love having Frozen replace Imma when they eventually let him walk as well. So, no, FaZe for me, I'm done. I was getting kind of... There was something building inside me when it came to just my goodwill for Karrigan. And then one day, Yumi on the show was just like, you know what? Karrigan's a bad caller. And I was like, yeah, you're right. It'd been building for a long time, and then it kind of just spilled out in that one episode. I was just like, yeah, you know what? It has been kind of bad, the calling, on top of everything else.
I have been fronting that a lot. Like, people don't give Karrigan enough shit for how bad the roster has been with the pieces he's had.
Exactly.
It's essentially the framing.
I do have
Michael
Rain.
Very quick to hate IGLs.
Yeah, true. I do have Rain as like one of my most annoying players, like just underperform consistently. Like he's had pop-off series against like Liquid, against, diabolically poor teams recently that have like boosted his rating. And I'm like, I know the reality is this guy's just not at the level. Like, you lot should have been trying to get Matisse out of Fnatic. You lot should have been trying to make any number of changes to improve your rifle core around Elige. But no, Elige too whiny, so now we're stuck with Jacob and Rain trying to make some space for Frozen. And I'm sure Frozen can move mountains, but those two guys are not mountains that we find, above the earth. Those undersea mountains that are secretly the tallest, the ones we don't know about, the ones that are like 34 kilometers high at the bottom of the sea. Those are the mountains he's trying to move, and that's just impossible. Just give the man a break. He's not able to do that. So yeah, free my boy Frozen. FaZe gonna go out in last
Frozen
place.
might be the Titanic, but the rest of FaZe is the iceberg, unfortunately.
The iceberg and just a cruise missile just crashing into the side of it. Like, it's beyond just something they run into. It's sabotage at this point. So yeah, I don't think FaZe is going to be particularly good. They might, as FaZe do, fluke a couple wins, but I hope they go 0-3 and change everything.
That's the only positive I bring, is that I did get a glimpse of some FaZe bullshit being back on the table. That's all.
That
it
Carrigan
did feel
clutch. That one Carrigan clutch.
Yeah.
You see Nip Magic, now it's time for FaZe fuckery. Right? Like that's sort of the situation that he's relying on. No, dude, I genuinely think just in terms of like, so I don't remember exactly how you guys do this for favorites. I think if you get to playoffs, you get a point, right? For favorites.
So the favorites make a point from the semifinal onwards. So they make the semi 1 point, final 2, win 3.
3D Max and Vayne are more likely to get you points. Like just outright putting it out there.
It was between 3D Max and FaZe for me. Pain are not there for me. Pain were not in the conversation. 3D Max were very much a deep consideration, and I was going to pick them, and then I just kind of last minute was like, you know what? Fuck it.
Don't
3D
doubt
Max
my Chilean chili pepper David does. He is fantastic. I believe in Vayne a little bit, not that much. Yeah.
I just think the digit variation on this team has made it strange, and I still don't really believe in Snow.
I agree with that. Yeah, bring back Nizen.
As usual, we finish off with a little bit of roster move propaganda, just trying to make our worldviews come to be. But yeah, those are our picks. That's the show. Leave a comment telling us your thoughts on which players you would have taken, or teams rather, you would have taken, which ones you're not a fan of. Who made a mistake? Did Yuumi fuck it up again? We'll find out, I'm sure, as soon as this goes live with someone roasting him. But yeah, thank you again to TeaTime for joining us. Leave a like, sub, and become a member if you want rights and more content. Yeah, we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
If you want rights, be a member if you want